The build up to Fortnite Season 4 is absolutely wild. There's an eclipse incoming, there's teasers on Twitter, and I know I do sound kinda sick because I am, but there's no way I wasn't making a video with all of this going on. In the most recent update, we received dialogue from Sloan where she tells us about an incoming eclipse. This eclipse is supposedly quite dangerous, and one of her trusted allies instructed her to leave the island before it happens, but why? Well, the main focus of this season has been set on a device known as the apparatus. With the most recent update, this device has been powered up to project a map of the stars into the sky, and this map showcases a large spherical object slowly making its way closer to the island. Whilst analyzing this strange object rapidly approaching us, Sloan discovers something very interesting.
It's not a natural cosmic phenomenon, and it's coming our way. With intent, the eclipse is the key. It has to be.
When comparing this dialogue about the eclipse to teasers sent out by Donald Mustard on Twitter, it is very safe to assume that the eclipse event next season is going to be centered around the full blood moon. A blood moon occurs when there is something blocking the sun's light from being able to reach the moon's surface, which causes it to go dark and red. We know that there is something massive headed for the island that will ultimately cause this eclipse, but what is it? Why is it so dangerous, and why does it put Sloan in such a difficult position, where she might even need the help of a long-lost ally? To answer all of those questions, we need to take a look into the ancient people of the jungle and what their lives were like. We know that they were very intelligent with their use of the kinetic ore, but these people also have a lot in common with a group known as the Mayans. The Mayans were a group of Mesoamericans known for their impressive temples, their writing, which was all done in glyphs, their discoveries in relation to astronomy, but most importantly, their highly intriguing beliefs about space and godlike figures. The Mayan people believed that the blood moon signified a dangerous monster on the horizon. From Sloan's new dialogue, we know that these people evacuated the jungle before the eclipse happened.
I've been told by someone you and I both trust that we need to get off this island as soon as we can. Is that what the previous residents did? Find some true home among the stars?
The blood moon was terrifying to them, so when they saw it rising, they left immediately. And if you want to find out why, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and like the video if you're enjoying it so far. Mayan priests would often study the stars to theorize about the future, and if you think about it, throughout this entire chapter, we have heard a lot about the stars.
The stars will decide in the end, but thank you for everything, my friend.
The Mayans also believed that the movements of celestial bodies were controlled by the gods. This means that the orbits of our planets, the phases of moons, and all the activity that goes on in the sky is controlled by some sort of godlike being. If Sloan is correct, the phenomenon that will cause this eclipse is not natural, and it's coming to our island with intent. I mean, it might just be the Cube Cradle, the mother of all motherships, the grandmother ship. Why did I say that so British? The grandmother ship that holds all the central power, and it also looks to have some sort of laser which could be really bad. A fellow creator by the name of PBJ pointed out that when comparing the Last Reality's Cube Cradle to this mural in the jungle, they look very similar. I've put together this shitty little animation to show at some point during the lunar eclipse the sun and the moon line up perfectly, with a teaser about the Last Reality that we received over 2 years ago. I mean, coincidence? No, hell no. Epic seemed to tease this stuff way ahead in advance, and there you have it. Maybe the Last Reality were behind this the entire time, and for whatever reason they so desperately needed our island to experience a lunar eclipse. Oh, and by the way, I know that reason. If you think back to the highly underwhelming storyline of Chapter 4 Season 2, you might just remember a character by the name of Triarch Nox, who is surprisingly still relevant. New NPC dialogue in the most recent update shows Era talking to Triarch Nox, and she says, "I know you're hiding from Triarch Aurora, but even you cannot stop the dawn." So, sorry, who the fuck is Triarch Aurora and what is the dawn? The Triarchy are a set of 3 rulers who represent dawn, dusk, and darkness. Or at least that's pretty likely. Triarch Nox is basically the god of darkness, and Aurora resembles a goddess of dawn. Triarch Aurora is trying to bring daylight to the island. So what if Triarch Nox is trying to cause this eclipse to block out all the sunlight? I mean, that would leave the island in darkness and it would be stopping the dawn. Not only would this also lead the Cube Cradle straight to the island, mind, but it'd also match up perfectly with what we were saying about the Mayans before. The Mayans believed that astronomical objects were moved by the gods. Nox might be moving the Cradle to cause the eclipse, stopping the dawn of his rival, Triarch Aurora. But let's say that maybe this object isn't the Cube Cradle. I've actually made that suggestion multiple times because yesterday a teaser was sent out with this image, supposedly showing something slowly covering the sun. Now at first it makes sense, right? Something slowly covering the sun to block out the sunlight to cause the blood moon, but there's one thing here that's just off. The simplicity of the shadow here made me think that it wasn't the Cube Cradle. If it was the Cube Cradle, there should really be all the spikes and whatnot around the edge. But maybe Fortnite just don't want to spoil it, and in that case I get it, but who knows? Maybe it is something more circular like the ice moon. Alongside this pretty confusing image, creators were sent a small note that said, "Thanks for adding to my collection, sent from Kuji Datara." Now after some thought, I took another look at this message and I remembered something the Ice King said way back in the Zero War comics. He said that he once had another name, but that the Ice King serves well enough. Ages ago, he began collecting items of power, things, beings too dangerous to exist. Considering that this note says he has added to his collection, the name Kuji Datara could possibly be the Ice King's actual name that he teases us with in the comics. But maybe not. Maybe it is the Cube Cradle and not the Ice Moon. Or maybe it's the Ice Moon and not the Cube Cradle. At this point, we can't really know, and there's no point in debating over it because it doesn't really matter. Both objects are huge, and they're both perfectly capable of causing this eclipse. And I mean, sure, if the Cube Cradle did come to the island, we would be a little bit more screwed, but the Ice King's also got a dangerous collection of monsters and shit down in his basement, so we wouldn't want to be confronted with that either. The thing that intrigues me the most about this is not the objects causing the eclipse, but rather the person. The fact that Triarch Nox could be behind all of this is really interesting to me. If he is blocking out the sunlight with whatever object comes to the island, and he's starting the lunar eclipse just to stop the dawn of Triarch Aurora, I think it could create for some really unique tension between the newly introduced Triarchy, and hopefully we learn a little more about them soon. There's of course one more member of the Triarchy that we're yet to meet, who is most likely the Triarch of Dusk. There was a loading screen that showed the shadow of this character with the description "Darkness draws near." Now that just seems very Dusk-like, which makes me think this is the Triarch of Dusk, but let me know ideas that you might have below in the comments, and I'll see you all as we sit back to watch the lunar eclipse.